Francisco defense. I agree with Wiggs with what he said about Aaron Jones yesterday. I think Aaron Jones is going to struggle in the run game. They're going to have to get the ball out to him on screens and stuff, don't you think, Wiggs, for him to be productive? So on the flip side of it, I think San Francisco, you know, they lost CMC. He's on IR. They're saying 4 weeks, but now they say he could miss more than six. So, but I think with Debo, and then Jordan Mason filling in for him, I think San Francisco is going to be just fine. Brock Purdy's going to have a decent game. So, and then hope, Ayuk, you know, maybe he finds his form now that he's back. We'll see. So for me, I don't know. I think this is going to be, like a 24-14 type game. Myself and with San Francisco coming out on top.
Yeah, I think San Francisco's got the better end of it here. Even with CMC being out, like their defense is just really good. Jordan Mason looked really good last week, and then you got two other solid weapons there in Debo and Ayuk, and then on top of it, you still got Kittle out there. I think the Vikings defense will struggle against this offense, and I think our offense is going to struggle against the defense. I end up seeing this game kind of being around like a probably like a 31 to like 20 type score line or 31 to 21. I definitely think the 49ers are going to win by two scores here. And I still don't think Sam Darnold's the answer at quarterback, and I think he's going to show how much he's going to struggle here today, personally at least. And I could very well see someone like Justin Jefferson only finishing with like 50 yards again with maybe a touchdown in this game. Um, I'm more so interested to see how Jalen Naylor does, filling in that wide receiver two spot this week. So that'll be kind of, I think that'll be kind of the highlight of this offense is watching him play here against the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was just going to mention that, so you must have been reading my mind. I think one of the players to watch in this game is Jalen Naylor. It'll be interesting to see if they activate Tristan Jackson too for the Vikings, too, because I know that they're looking high at Brandon Powell, but Tristan Jackson, would be nice to see if he gets some reps. And I think the player to watch on San Francisco is Ayuk. I think he might be the one that could be a difference maker on this if he gets back into his groove.
Yeah, and doesn't drop the touchdown passes.
Yeah, right, exactly. So with that, then we move on to Seattle with New England. We both picked Seattle in this one. It was close for me on this. I know New England's at home. Uh, I just I just feel like Seattle's defense is going to be able to contain Brisket. I know New England's defense was played good last week too. I think this is going to be a close game, like 3 points. Like a 3 point difference. Something like. Geez, I don't think this is going to be high
I was
scoring.
thinking like 17-14.
Yeah, that's kind of what. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I I think that on Seattle side, I think DK is going to have a tough. I don't know if he's going to have a great game, but I think he'll probably have about maybe 50 yards. I think JSN is going to be the difference maker on this one. I think he's going to have an opportunity here to take advantage of the fact that they're going to be focusing on DK. So I like JSN, and they're obviously Walker's out of this game, and they got Charbonnet
Yep.
filling in, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. And then on the flip side, uh, I think that it'll be interesting to see how well Stevenson does in this game. If Stevenson has a good game, New England could win. Like I said, this was a tough one to pick, and I'm still not sold on their receivers there in New England and how that's going to pan out. It's really tough to pick out um, who's going to have a game, but I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that Polk is going to step up this week, and I think he's going to outshine the other receivers in this game. So I think Polk is the one to watch on New England, and on Seattle, I think JSN is the one to watch. And I agree with Wiggs. I think it's going to be 17-14 Seattle.
Yeah, and there's just not a whole lot to be said about this game in my eyes, at least. I think it's going to be really defensive heavy. I think both defenses are going to have good games. The Seattle offense like I know they played a good defense last week, but they just looked very mediocre. And um, I don't know, just something about how poorly they play just kind of sticks with me. And I don't think they're gonna go crazy. I do think they're gonna pull out the win, but I think it's literally gonna come down to a field goal in the last drive. Um, I do see DK having a decent game here, though. I think he'll go for like 80 yards and a touchdown. And then I see JSN being that wide receiver too there with probably another 60 or 70 and a touchdown himself. But um, I guess we'll kind of see because this will be lower scoring and it's kind of hard to, talk up some of the players when it's a lower scoring game. I think probably the key player in this game for me to watch is Charbonnet. In his few starts last year, he did all right. He didn't score a touchdown, I don't think. So some production there would be nice. So for those who have him on your team, I mean, it's not a bad start this week if you have him. And then, like you said, we need to see something out of the Patriots wide receiving core because last week was kind of grim and no one separated themselves from the pack. Brissett kind of just could be part of that issue there because he's still relatively new, everyone in that offense. But I would like to see someone like Polk or Douglas or Osborne pull away from the pack today.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see how they do um, in regards to those guys. So, um, but I don't think this is going to be an exciting game to watch. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, personally, and I think it's going to come down to probably whoever has the ball last.
Yeah.
With that, we go into the Giants against Washington. Listen, the Giants' offense to me is a mess. The only bright side, on that offense, for me personally, is Neighbors. I think that he even with Daniel Jones struggling and stuff like that, he's got to throw it to somebody, and I think Neighbors is going to be that guy. So, and they're going into to play Washington at home. Washington on the flip side of things, I think Jaden Daniels showed everybody last week that he can overcome adversity at least. When he's not playing that well, and he kind of overcame some of that in the second half. I think he's going to be just fine. I think this is going to be a breakout game for him. I think between him and McLaurin, they're going to have a good game. They're going to find that mojo, and McLaurin's going to show everybody why he's going to be Daniels' number one target this year. I really believe McLaurin's going to have over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think that Daniels is going to have 300 yards. I don't think he's going to be rushing for 80 yards and stuff. I think the big the interesting piece of this puzzle is who's going to step up as another target for Washington. Is it going to be Sanat? Is it going to be Nolan Brown? Or is it just going to be Eckler and Robinson out of the backfield? So it'll be interesting here. I think this one will be, I don't know. I'm thinking 24-10, 24-14, something like that. On the flip side, the Giants got to figure out the quarterback situation. I think they're going to continually lose patience with Daniel Jones if he doesn't improve. And Jones, if he doesn't improve, it could eventually lose his starting job. So I think he's got to figure it out. I think that if they want to have any chance in this game, they got to eliminate the amount of possessions, and that means they got to get the run game going. And I can see Singletary having an okay game. I'm just because Washington defense is still trying to figure out their identity. But I'm just not sold on Singletary. So I don't know that that's going to happen. I think Singletary though is the one you got to watch for on the Giants. If Singletary can have a good game, this one put aside Neighbors because I think Neighbors is going to be fine. I think if Singletary can have a good game here and they can maintain possession and stuff like that, that'll give the Giants a shot. Personally, I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but he's the piece of the puzzle that we need to watch. And I think Wendell Robinson is still a really nice compliment to Neighbors. I think the Giants, and once they figure out the quarterback position, they're going to find that they're not going to be that bad.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because both these defenses aren't that great. So I honestly could see this going either way, but I do want to give the edge to the Commanders. I think it'll be probably like a 24-17 type game. Yeah, Singletary, like in our video that we put out this morning, I had him starting. I actually think he's going to have a pretty good game here against the Washington defense because they didn't have a great game last week against White or um, Bucky Irving. So I could totally see him popping on off. I could see Tracy getting involved quite a bit today, and he could have a pretty good game as well. So I'm excited to kind of see how that run game does. From quarterback play, I think Daniel Jones is just one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, and I don't understand the Giants paying him so much money for him to literally have less touchdowns over the last 2 years than Saquon had in week 1. I just saw that stat last night, which is nuts. Um, you need to be able to throw the ball and get it to your receivers. You have the talent in your offense. You need to be able to move the ball. It's not like last year where really your guy was Wan'Dale Robinson or Sterling Shepard. You have probably, I'd probably say the second best receiver in that class. I think Adunzi was probably the best, and then Harrison was third. But you need to utilize your rookie that you drafted. He's a big body. He is really good on the field. He runs really good routes from what we saw last weekend. You just need to get him the ball. Um, Wandale's pretty good there as well. I think him feeding off of Neighbors is actually just gonna raise his stock up quite a bit. And I could totally see these two having both 1,000-yard years if Danny Dimes could figure out how to get his balls to his receivers, or if they just go a different route with a different quarterback. I think they have, who are their backups? Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock or whatever. So you have backups that are somewhat capable. So like honestly, at this point, your backups are probably looking just as good as Daniel Jones. Um, I'm hoping Daniel Jones finds Malik Neighbors quite a bit, but we'll see. I'm just saying that mainly because Neighbors is on my team. But this game is a very important one for me this week because I have Daniels and I have Neighbors, so I kind of need it to be a high scoring game, and I would love to see like a 35-42 type game in this with very poor defensive play.
Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I do think that the Commanders have the edge, also. With that said, we're going into the Chargers versus the Panthers. The Panthers, just like the Giants, their offense was a mess last week. Yeah, they played a tough Saints team, but personally, I know Wiggs is down on Young, but personally, I think the Panthers have a better chance of flipping it around with their quarterback because I do think that Young um, is a good can be a good quarterback. I really do. I think that he just struggled last week. I I think he'll bounce back a little bit, but they're going against a tough Chargers defense. Jim Harbaugh is going to have those guys ready. I think they're going to bounce back. I don't think this game by any means is going to be like last week's game. I don't think that he's going to bounce back enough for them to beat the Chargers. Uh, it was disappointing to see what their offense did last week. They've got Hubbard and Sanders in the backfield. I personally think Sanders is going to be more of a weapon this week than Hubbard. I know Wiggs is kind of a little bit down on Johnson, but I still think Johnson's going to be fine. I really do. I think that they're going to get it figured out. I just don't think it's going to. I think they'll start getting it figured out this week, but I don't think it's going to be enough for them to pull out the win. I think in order for them to even have a chance at a win, Young is got to figure out how to get the ball to Johnson, and take advantage of his talents. And I think that they definitely need to try to establish some kind of run game in this game. I don't know that that's going to happen, but if they can do those two things, they'll have a shot. On the flip side of it, I think the Chargers showed last week that they're not just going to be a pushover team this year. I think Jim Harbaugh's got these guys ready to go. We obviously got to see what their offense is going to be like. It's not going to be the Justin Herbert show. It's going to be, Dobbins and Edwards, right? I think they're going to run a lot more. I do think that they're still going to pass the ball, obviously, and I think Herbert's going to build that connection with McConkey um, there too. So I think in this game, there is the potential for it to be a breakout game for McConkey there on the Chargers team. But I really don't think that unless Carolina turns around their run defense and stuff, I think this is going to be a running game on the Chargers side. So to me, the different the guys to watch on this is Dobbins and Edwards, and if they can keep them in check, uh, then it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I got a lot of question marks about that Panthers defense. So this one again, I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be like a 17-10 kind of game with the Chargers coming out on top.
Yeah, I was gonna say 21-10. I think the Chargers just definitely have the upper hand here. I think the Panthers will end up getting some sort of touchdown. I don't know where it'll come from, but um, for me, it's just a very disappointing Carolina team so far. I know it's only been 1 week, but wide receiver and running backs there really didn't do anything. But that really isn't their fault. It was more so just on poor quarterback play there from Young. I know it's the first week of the year, but you need to look better than that with the added weapons you've had around you now in this offseason. You can't look like the same old Bryce Young from last year. Like, that was a very pathetic year, and you need to bounce back.
Well, he needs his offensive line to protect him.
Yeah, but a lot of quarterbacks have that same issue and get something done in the offense. He wasn't able to get anything going.
Yeah, but he was against the Saints defense. You got to cut him a little bit of slack on last week. So
I mean, I'm not gonna cut him any slack. You're a professional. Get the job done at the end of the day. Like, you're a young quarterback who can move around. I mean, we saw it last week with Jaden Daniels against the Buccaneers. Like, utilize your youth and your legs and extend the play. Even if you're just throwing to running backs at that point, get your ball to like Hubbard or Sanders or something. Like, you keep it easy on yourself. But you got another tough defense this week. I think they'll struggle here in this offense. I don't know who's going to end up getting the touchdown. I gave them 10 points. For all I know, it could be Deontay Johnson, who I benched this week. So hopefully that's not the case. But J.K. Dobbins, like you said, I think is going to be um, in a prime role to have a good game. Maybe some good red zone touches from Gus Edwards. That is a nice big body there in the red zone. And if they utilize him like Baltimore did a little bit, he'll get a decent amount of touches there in that red zone. But McConkey, I'm a little excited to see. I stupidly benched him earlier this week when I wanted to start him, and I just didn't go with my gut. So I'm hoping he plays good and builds some chemistry. I'll be kicking myself though if he throws up a ton of fantasy points here this week.
well, here's my hot take. Wiggs is benching Deontay Johnson, so Deontay's going to go for over 100 yards and have a touchdown. So
It's probably the case.
that leads us into our next game: the Saints versus the Cowboys. Listen, this was a really tough game for me to pick, and I know that I'm going to get burned on it. Just seeing the star there on my end, that tells me the Saints are going to probably end up winning. But I still gave the Cowboys the edge in this one. I didn't think Dak, looked that great last week. Me personally, and now he's going to be playing against, um, you know, uh, San Francisco's the Saints defense. So I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think, or the big difference maker to me in this game is who in the backfield of the Cowboys is going to step up. Is it going to be Elliott? Is it going to be Rico? I mean, who's going to step up? I think that's going to have to, whoever steps up, they're going to be the difference maker. So to me, the Cowboys' backfield is going to be the difference maker because they're going to need to have some kind of production from them in order for their offense to be effective today. Because obviously CD, right, Wiggs, but he's still going to be facing Lattimore and some tough DBs in this game. So So I think their backfield's the difference maker here. And then on the flip side, I think for the Saints, that Derek Carr needs to figure out how to get their best receiver the ball. I mean, last week they beat the Panthers, 47-10. I think was the score. I mean, and he targeted them twice. I get it. Maybe they didn't need him and stuff. Yeah, you can make an argument for that, but he's got to figure out how to get the ball to Olave. I don't know what the deal is. I know that they had issues last year where they went back and forth, but Carr's got to get the ball to Olave if they want to have a chance against this. I mean, awesome Dallas defense. Dallas's defense looked awesome. I mean, them and the Steelers defense last week were the ones that stood out to me. He's got to figure out how to get the ball to Olave, and if if he doesn't figure that out, they're going to struggle in this game. I think Kamara is going to be more active in the passing game than he is in the running game because I think the Cowboys defense is going to shut down the run game. So I think Kamara is going to get the majority of his yards in the passing game. But I really feel that Olave is the difference maker in this one. And I think this is going to be, like 27-24 type game with the I'm giving the edge to the Cowboys, but let me go on record as saying it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints win because the Cowboys do this to me every year. Whenever I pick them, they end up throwing up a big goose egg.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on the route of probably saying I think it's gonna be like 30-21 here in this game, leaning towards the Cowboys. I just think with the way their defense played last week, we see it again this week, and I think there are some struggles on the Saints offense. It wasn't really a impressive offensive win last week. I think their defense just showed up and played really good, and I think their defense actually had a touchdown as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, um, their offense just really didn't impress me, and they're going to be going up against a tougher defense this week. So I could totally see them taking a step back in that scoring category. I'll definitely give them credit for at least 3 touchdowns here in this game because I do think Kamara will have 1 or 2 himself. I could totally see someone like Olave, if he's getting the ball, having a touchdown. Um, and then just someone else randomly in that mix, like Rashid Shaheed, another solid receiver in that offense. And he had a good week last week, so we'll kind of see how that plays on out. But
Yeah, and that's the thing. Shaheed's another young wide
yeah,
receiver. If they can figure out how to get Olave the ball, I mean,
you got a nice, really young receiving
They
core
they
there.
they've actually got a nice young receiving core. They got Kamara, they've got Morneau and Hill as tight ends. I mean, they've got the weapons on offense.
Yep. You just need to find a way to get him the ball, and I agree with you. They need to find a way to get Olave the ball because when he's getting the ball, he's at least a top 10 receiver in the league, if not better, because he is just talented and he just needs to be utilized. And him and Shaheed could be a really good 1-2 punch, and then A.T. Perry there at the third spot could be a nice little compliment to those guys. So
Yeah, Carr's got to be consistent. And that's going to be another key there.
on the side of the Cowboys, though, like you said, Dak wasn't really that impressive last week. I don't know if some of that was just because of how long it took CD to sign a contract. I could totally see him having a better performance here this week. And yes, they need to figure out something in that backfield. But I think even if they do a 50-50 split and both guys are carrying the ball pretty well, that they could be perfectly fine.
Yeah, when I said that, I just think they need to figure out how to get that rushing game going. And if it's both of them, great.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But they're going to need an effective rushing game today in order.
Yeah,
to beat the Saints.
and last week was just a little tougher of a matchup there on defense with the Browns. They're pretty good against that run defense, so I think this week will be a true test. The Saints defense did look good last week, yeah, but they were playing the Panthers, so I'm not 100% sold there yet. But maybe they prove me wrong today, and props to them if they do.
Well, that takes us into the next game, the Colts versus the Packers. Another tough game to pick. It's hard to pick to pick against the Packers when they're at home, but they don't have Jordan Love. Malik Willis is going to be starting this week, so there's a lot of question marks about what is Malik Willis going to look like. I think the Colts defense is middle of the field defense. But I'm giving them the edge over Malik Willis because we just don't know what he's going to look like in the offense. So I think the key to this game is going to be, can the Colts stop Josh Jacobs? If they can shut down Jacobs, which I think the Colts game plan coming into this is probably going to be, hey, let's stop Jacobs and let's make Willis throw the ball and let's make Willis beat us because he's the backup. So to me, that's going to be the key for the Packers is can they get Jacobs going in this game? If they get Jacobs going in this game, I can that would be one way that they could pull out a win here. If they can't get Jacobs going and they have to rely on Willis in the passing game, I'm not sold that that's going to happen, and that's why I took the Colts. So Jacobs to me is the key here, but I totally can see Jaden Reed coming out and having a good game if they can find the chemistry with Willis. I also think that it wouldn't surprise me if we see a breakout game from Dontavius Wicks. I'm still high on him. I think that he could have a decent game in this one as well. If Willis can find that mojo. On the flip side of things, I think Richardson's Richardson. I think he's going to have a good game. It's going to be that Green Bay defense isn't a pushover, but I still think that with his feet, he's going to be able to have a good game. I think that he'll be able to find Pittman. I think Pittman will have a better game this week. But to me, the key on this one is feed the ball to Taylor. I think you can find the holes in the Green Bay defense. I could see Taylor having a monster game here and breaking out and going for 130 yards, maybe even in a couple touchdowns. So I think that's the key, and I also think that the fact that Richardson can extend plays with his legs and stuff is going to be another key. So that's why I took the Colts in this one.
Yeah, this was another tough one for me as well. Just looking at last week, it was a little hard for me to judge because Richardson only did complete 9 of 19 passes last week. So um, it's going to be interesting because I know their run game with Taylor. You definitely got to feed him the ball. If you saw the Packers game last week with Barkley going off, and maybe that's just a fluke because it was in Brazil, but you need to feed Taylor the ball here in this game. It can't just be all on Richardson to run the ball because Taylor, I think, can break down this defense, kind of like you said, and could have a monster game. But on top of that, you also need Richardson to, settle down in the pocket, throw the ball, get it to Pittman, get it to Mitchell. You have the receivers in your offense to do that.
Yeah, they got Pierce too, isn't he?
Yeah, you got Pierce. You got a few other guys, but
and Dolan.
You can't rely on one big play a game to make. Not necessarily that you're focusing on stats, but to make your stats look good. You had one play last week for 60 yards. You take that out, you're sitting there at 8 and 19 and only like 130 passing yards. So, in my eyes, you need to settle down a little bit and then find your guys. You actually have a really young and nice receiving core there. Utilize your guys. Like, make it easier on yourself. Don't always just take off for a run. Right now, Richardson kind of reminds me a little bit of Fields, running the ball a lot more than passing the ball in his early years. So I would like to see him settle down and, yes, extend plays with your legs, but with that, let your receivers get open because as soon as they see you getting out of the pocket, they're going to find the gap in the defense, and someone like Michael Pittman will be a really nice weapon to do that because he's a smart player. Get him the ball, and I could easily see them beating the Packers in that sense, but I just don't see that happening just yet. Um, I don't know. Something about Richardson just kind of reminds me of Fields in his first 2 years where he just kept running the ball rather than settling down and letting the offense come to him. And Richardson, in my eyes, is in a better position than Fields was. But on the flip side, it's going to be interesting to see how Willis does because I don't remember really seeing him play much. So um, if he can find Jaden Reed the ball, I think he'll be fine. Josh Jacobs will need to get going in this game. He had kind of a slow week one. And then on top of it, I think, like you said, I'm still high on Dontavian Wicks. I think he's going to end up being the receiver too in this offense, but I can totally see Dobbs having a good game. I don't know about Watson. I'm still not fully sold there, but any one of those 4 receivers could really pop off at any given time.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another one. I don't necessarily think this is going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be like a 21-17 type game. With it could come down to the last team that has the ball. But I still give the edge to the Colts.
I'm going to say 17-13.
Well, that leads us into the next game, the Browns versus the Jaguars. Listen, I think Lawrence is going to struggle in this game uh, because I think the Browns defense is tough. But with that being said, I also think that Watson is going to struggle in this game because, man, Watson to me looked not good last week. He did not look good at all. Not to mention he's got another off the field issue that's providing a distraction. During this week. So he's had to answer to that. He needs to figure it out. And I just feel like as much as Lawrence is going to struggle, I think Watson's going to struggle even more against this because this Jaguars defense isn't bad. So I think that in this game, I think the key for the Jaguars is what can ETN do out of the backfield. Can Bigsby have another decent game? They've got a good 1-2 punch there in their backfield. What is So I think their backfield is going to be a big difference. But here, my hot take on this one: Brian Thomas Jr. I think he has to have a good game in this game. I know everybody likes to talk about Kirk. I'm not talking about Kirk right now. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be the difference maker in this game. And as much as Lawrence is going to struggle, I think he's still going to find Thomas Jr. and I think he's going to have at least one touchdown in this game, and he's going to be the difference maker. On the flip side of it, I think that Jerome Ford has to have a big game against this Jaguars defense. They gotta feed him the ball. They gotta establish that run game, and they gotta figure out a way to get Watson into some kind of rhythm on offense. Throw some screens to Ford. Throw some slants or whatever. Get him in a rhythm so that he can build up that confidence. If they don't do that, don't get them in a rhythm, the Browns offense is going to struggle, and I don't care how good their defense is going to be, they're going to lose this game. It is at Jacksonville as well, which, Jacksonville always kind of, these Florida teams always kind of have the edge given on what the weather's going to be like and stuff like that. So I'm picking Jacksonville in this one. I think this is maybe like a 24-21 type game. I do think it's going to be close and stuff, but I still think Jacksonville is going to pull out the win.
Yeah, and I agree on both sides. Both teams need to get the running side down in this game. Last week, I was really more impressed by Bigsby than ETN. I don't know. ETN's not bad. I think ETN's going to touch the ball a little more this week. I just think they split it early on. It was interesting for a week one. I don't know how to judge that situation.
He gets more of an edge just because he's more of a factor in the passing game. Because Bigsby, I don't even think was targeted in the passing game. So
no, and that part surprised me. But I think ETN's going to go back to kind of the production he had last year a little bit, up to like 75 or 80% of the time he'll be on the field rather than his like 56, I think it was last week, which is kind of nuts. But Bigsby now to push over. I think if ETN were to get hurt, Bigsby could take over that offense and be pretty good. He wouldn't even have to do much in the passing game at that point because they'd have to Ernest Johnson. But Jerome Ford, on the other hand of things, again, you need to get him going. I do agree with that. Utilize him in the passing game as much as you can as well. The dude is a beast in the passing game. I think throwing some screens out to him or even lining him up on the line and like basically running a wide receiver screen would even be a nice play. Like you said, some slants or a few curls, some short passes, and a few outs. Like just get him the ball. You get him going. I think you can get someone like Jerry Jeudy going pretty well in this game if Deshaun Watson can find him. For me, I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be the top weapon in this offense. I think everyone's got more eyes on Cooper, but I think Jerry Jeudy is going to become Deshaun Watson's number one target as long as Watson can, get back into a rhythm because he looked horrendous last week. So, if he gets into a rhythm, I think Jerry Jeudy's going to be the guy in the offense. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Will Fuller with Deshaun Watson. I could totally see and being that reliable like receiver for Deshaun. And I think Cooper will kind of just be a nice little compliment there. Um, and yeah, on the other side, I do agree with you. Brian Thomas is the guy. I had him in my starts when I uploaded the video this morning. I think he is easily the clear cut one guy in this offense. Lawrence just needs to look his way a lot more, and Lawrence needs to, look good. Play like you're getting paid. Don't just play mediocre. Like 170 yards. Sorry, that's just not good enough. You need 250, 300 every week. Like you should be able to do that if you're one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
All right, with that, we're jumping into the next game, the Jets versus the Titans. This is going to be a good game. I think it's definitely going to be a good game. Titans got a good defense. The Jets got a good defense. The Jets didn't look good last week, but you got Aaron Rodgers. I don't care what anybody says about him. I hated Aaron Rodgers for many years. I shouldn't say hate. Didn't like him for many years being a Vikings fan when he played for the Packers, but he is Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to bounce back. This week. I think they're going to figure it out. They're going to make adjustments on offense. You got arguably the best running back in the league in Hall. You got Garrett Wilson, who's probably the best young receiver in the league right now. You also got Mike Williams coming back. Aaron Rodgers has got his mojo with the Allen Lazard. So I think they're gonna figure it out. I think in this game, to me, the key factor for the Jets is Aaron Rodgers. What is Aaron Rodgers going to do this week to get the offense going? Brees Hall's he's going to be Hall, right? I think that you're going to feed him the ball, you're going to pass him the ball and stuff. But what is Aaron Rodgers going to do to get this offense on track? I think he's gonna find his mojo this week, and they're going to bounce back. On the flip side, I was really disappointed in Tennessee last week. Levy's didn't play well. They didn't play well in general. Yeah. I do think their defense isn't bad, but they need to figure it out on offense. And unfortunately for them, Levy's is facing a really tough Jets defense. The corners, the defensive backs on this team are beasts. I think Levy's is gonna. I think they're gonna start to play better in this game, but I think they're still going to struggle against this defense, even at home. I don't think Ridley's going to have that great of a game because I think he's going to be shadowed by Gardner. So I think, if they want to have success and have a chance to win this game, they need to be able to run the ball with Spears and Pollard, and they need to figure out how to get the ball to Tyler Boyd, because Tyler Boyd could be a difference maker in the receiving core. So to me, that's going to be the X factor, is can they run the ball and will they get the ball to Boyd? I'm not trying to take anything away from D-Hop, but I think D-Hop is going to be shadowed as well. So I think Boyd is going to have to be the difference maker from this receiving core. So I think this is going to be like a 27-21 type game. With the Jets coming out on top.
Yeah, I was going to say 27-17 with the Jets on top. I think Aaron Rodgers will be perfectly fine this week. I know he's playing a tough defense yet again back-to-back weeks, but he was just getting back into the flow of things coming off his injury. I think he'll be perfectly fine this week. He didn't look terrible in the first half last week. It kind of dwindled out after that, but he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, and he needs to stay composed and not look frustrated all the time. Like, stuff happens, just like he knows, like he just needs to get over it and move on. Like you said, he's got one of the top running backs in the league. He's got one of the top receivers in the league. You got a pretty decent line. You got one of the best defenses. Like, you just need to let the game come to you. Get the ball to your playmakers. I mean, I would love to see Brees Hall getting the ball more than he did last week. But I will say this. Rodgers did check into a lot of running plays last week when he noticed certain things on the defense, and I noticed that watching the game. So I think Brees Hall's value is at an all-time high right now because Rodgers.
And then we talked about that earlier this year. Didn't I tell you that Rodgers was going to be a huge benefit to him?
Yeah, and he checked into quite a few running plays, and those plays went for 5+ yards every time that he checked into it. So Rodgers knows what he's doing. He just needs to get that flow of the offense going. He's got Lazard. He's got Williams. You got Wilson. You have unlimited options here in this offense. You can throw it to your running back. You got 3 receivers. You got a tight end. Like, they'll get into it. I think they're going to be a top team here in the NFL. I think it was just a sluggish week one there because they were getting back into the flow of things, and Rodgers, you can tell, was not extending plays like he is known to, just because of the injury last year. But um, I expect a much better game, and I expect a pretty solid performance from at least Garrett Wilson and probably Allen Lazard. I think we'll get a pretty standard Brees Hall performance at like 15 points this week, but um, yeah.
All right, well then we move on to the next game, Buccaneers versus the Lions. Initially, well, listen, I think the Buccaneers, they've got a really good team. Same with the Lions. The problem for the Buccaneers this week is that they got really banged up in their game against Washington, especially their defensive back field. Their DBs and they got banged up big time, so they're going to be coming in with some injuries in this game on defense, which to me is going to be a big factor because I think that that's gonna. Everybody's talking about this being a tough matchup for Goff. Actually, I think Goff is going to be just fine in this game because of the injuries. I think St. Brown's going to break out from in this game. He's not going to have a performance like he did last week. I think Williams is going to have a great game as well. I think he's going to keep showing that he's definitely a solid number two behind St. Brown. And, Laporta is going to be Laporta. I think they're still going to get him the ball. Uh, you know, Gibbs and Montgomery. I I I think that Montgomery is going to struggle a little bit because the Buccaneers do have a strong defensive line that against the run. So I could see Gibbs actually being more active in this game today, coming out of the passing game with some screens and stuff like that. So I do think that their run game is going to probably struggle a little bit here. I think that the majority of their yards is going to come out of the passing game, out of screens and stuff like that. I still think Montgomery and Gibbs both could have a touchdown in this game. So, and then on the flip side, man, I'll tell you, Baker Mayfield has looked really, really good since being with the Buccaneers. I think he's resurrected his career after leaving Cleveland and, kind of flipping back and forth and finding his home in Tampa Bay. I really like this offense. I think, they've got White and Irving in the backfield, and then they've got Evans and Godwin. Um, they got a nice young tight end in Otten, and I think Baker Mayfield's really settled down. He's kind of eliminated the mistakes in his game. He's really, he kind of reminds me in regards to turning around his career what Geno Smith did when he found his home in Seattle. So I like the offense here. I think that they're going to keep it close in this game, but I just ultimately think that they're not going to be able to overcome the injuries. If they want to have a chance against the Lions here, they gotta run the ball with White, with Irving. They got to keep the time of possession on their end and eliminate the amount of possessions that the Lions get. If they can do that, then the Buccaneers definitely have a shot at winning this game. But they're going to need a big game from Rondell White, and they need to just extend, 12, 13 play drives. You know what I'm saying, Wiggs? So I think this could, I'm not going to say this is going to be a low scoring game. I think this has got a potential to be a higher scoring game. It could be like 31-28 because with the injuries on Tampa Bay, I think they're going to struggle. Detroit defense, I think they're still trying to find themselves as well. So I'm saying 31-28 Detroit.
I'm going to say 28-27 Detroit. I think both these teams are going to be pretty solid today. Um, to touch on what you said with Baker Mayfield, I think the change of scenery helped him. It's like one of those situations that we've talked about where, maybe being in a different situation is beneficial. Maybe it, resurrects your career, like you said. And I know there, a lot of quarterbacks could, have that here this year. Sam Darnold was one of the big ones with the scenery, even though I'm not sold there. But sometimes the change of pace kind of helps. And I think he was also put in a better situation because he's got more talent around him too. I don't think he really had, the greatest of talent. You don't have like a Mike Williams or a Chris Godwin on your team there in years past, but it's no excuse. He just found a really nice team, and is gelling with his players, and I think he's going to have a good game here today. I think Jared Goff will also have a pretty good game. To agree with you, St. Brown's not going to do what he did last week. He's going to be more involved this week. I think Jameson Williams will be pretty involved as well. I could see both these guys going for over 100 yards today because I do think it's going to be a more pass heavy offense. Maybe we're surprised. Maybe Montgomery pops off a few good plays and you know, maybe their run game's more involved than we think. But in the end, I do think it's going to be more of a passing game here, and I think Gibbs and Williams will be those change of pace like playmakers in the offense with St. Brown just doing his thing and Laporta doing his thing as well. So
That leads us into the next game, the Raiders at the Ravens. Listen, I like both these teams, uh, but I'm giving the edge to Baltimore here because they're at home. I think Max Crosby and that Raiders defense is going to be a. I mean, they're going to play well. I know Crosby struggled a little bit last week because the Chargers offensive line had a good strategy.
their rookie Joe Alt played good last week.
Yeah, he played really good against Crosby, but Crosby's got a huge motor, and the guy doesn't come off the field. I mean, it's crazy. And I think he's still gonna. I think he's gonna bounce back and have a good game. I don't think it's gonna be enough to overcome the Ravens. I think the Ravens defense is going to be the key here, and actually, they're my the big factor in this game is their defense. I think the Ravens are gonna are gonna force Minshew to step up and throw the ball, I just think that Minshew's going to make a couple mistakes. He's known to do that because he does kind of take risks. So to me, I think that the key to this game for the Raiders, if the Raiders want to have a shot, they got to get Zamir White going. They got to. They can't force the offensive side of the thing into Minshew's hands. They got to get Zamir White going and find a way to get him some yards, extend plays, keep the ball in their hands, and keep Lamar off the field. If they can do that, they'll have a shot. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be. I think that Ravens defense is going to be tough on them today. And then on the flip side, I think that Lamar obviously last week against the Chiefs, you know, yeah, I'm not even going to go into that because I got opinions on that. We can talk about that later. I think Lamar's going to come out and he's going to be able to extend plays and keep and stay away from Crosby, which is going to help him. It wouldn't surprise me if Flowers has a really nice game in this one. Boy, I tell you, I like their 1-2 punch on tight ends. I mean, Mark Andrews and Likely. I mean, they probably got. I would think the best tight end duo in the league. I think both of those guys could have a decent game. To me, the factor in this game is for them on the offense is can they have the balance though? Is Henry going to be able to come out and run the ball and be consistent? I don't know if they can have the balance on the ball. This might not be close. I think the Raiders defense are going to make it hard on Henry. I could see Justice Hill having a bigger game in this one. I still think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to go 28-27 to quote Wiggs on the last game.
Yeah, I think this is me personally going to be like a 35-21 game. I think the Ravens are going to come out and just kind of obliterate them. I think their defense is quite a bit better, and like you said, Minshew is likely going to make a mistake or two. And last week their offense didn't look crazy good. And like you said, like their offense really needs to get Zamir White the ball. He needs to be more involved in the running game. You even need to involve him more in the passing game. Like nothing against Madison, but Zamir White last year when he was in that passing game for Josh Jacobs, he looked pretty good. He's a good receiving back. You need to get him more involved in this offense because if he's involved, I think this offense will be a lot better. No knock against Madison at all. Like I still think he should be out there good 35-40% of the time, but Zamir White needs to be out on the field more. They didn't utilize him much at all last week. I think he was only out there for 35% of the snaps. You need to get him going, involve him quite a bit more. On top of that, we need to see the Raiders get Brock Bowers or Michael Mayer the ball. quite a bit here if they want some success, because I think Devontae Adams is going to be locked down most of the game. If you're not getting your tight ends the ball, you need to get Jacoby Myers the ball or Zamir White the ball. You need to get into your playmakers' hands. You can't just not utilize your playmakers like they did last week. So, um, get them the ball. On the other side of things, Derrick Henry needs to get something going. But after watching Week 1 and hearing how they want to run this offense here, I could totally see Derrick Henry kind of just being a mediocre running back this year and someone who's not utilized as much as he's used to being utilized. And I could see Justice Hill being on the field quite a bit more this year than Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do agree that Bowers needs to be active in this game. I think last week he separated himself from Myers or from Ayers, and he's definitely going to be an active part of the offense. So that leads us into the next game: LA versus the Cardinals. This was a tough one for me to pick, but I went with LA. I know everybody thought, well, LA, they lost Puka. He's on IR. First they said 4 weeks. Now they're saying it might be more closer to 6 for him as well. They think he's going to be out a little bit longer. Kupp stepped in, was targeted a lot. Obviously, that had a lot to do with the fact that him and Stafford have chemistry. So, to me, in this game, I think it's going to come down to can the Cardinals stop Kyren? And I think Kyron's going to have a good game in this one. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but I do think he's going to have a good game in this one, and he's going to be the difference maker. The other thing is that LA did show that they do have a decent set of receivers with Puka out, so they didn't lose a beat, with Puka being out. It upped the value of Kupp because now he's getting targeted more, but, they got Robinson there. They got Tyler Johnson, who stepped in, had a decent game. They got, Atwell. But I think the other key to this game for the Rams is I think that I think Stafford's gonna find Parkinson, their tight end. He stepped up last week. I think he could have a decent game here against this Cardinals defense, which is gonna make a big difference. On the flip side of things here, I think the Cardinals, I think they do have a good team. I just think that they need another week to kind of gel. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Harrison. He was non-existent in their offense last week. So I think it's, they gotta get him involved in the offense. James Conner's got to be able to extend drives and have an effective game in the rushing game. The one thing that everybody was questioning coming into this year is what the Rams defense was going to look like, and I think last week they actually looked pretty good. So if the Cardinals want to have a shot here, they got to keep the Rams offense off the field, and they got to extend drives. They got to keep the ball out of Stafford's hand in that offense. And in order to do that, they need Conner and Benson to step up in their backfield. I think those are the keys in this game, and they need to figure out how to get the most hyped rookie involved in the offense. I mean, they've got Harrison, they got McBride, they got Dortch, they got Michael Wilson, I believe, is one of the other receivers. Obviously they need to get McBride going, but they need to find a way to get Harrison going. He can't come out and start out slow as a rookie. He's the most hyped receiver in this draft. Yeah. They got to figure out how to get him going. So I think this is going to be another game where it's has the potential to be a little bit higher scoring. So I'm going to say 28, 24, the Rams. I think it'll be a little bit closer than people think, but I still think the Cardinals defense will kind of slow down the Rams a little bit and give them a shot in this, but I think ultimately the Rams will pull it out.
Yeah, I think this will be a 31-20 game here from the Rams. I just think they have a lot more weapons in the offense. You touched on them pretty well, so I won't dig too much into that. Cooper Cup, though, with this, chemistry already with Stafford, he's going to have a good game. It really doesn't matter who the other two receivers are on the field, in my opinion, because his best year, he really only had Robert Woods there, taking some of the slack off. But I think Cup will be perfectly fine. Their two other receivers are pretty good there as well. It's just a matter if they can consistently be that good. But on the side of the Cardinals here, this is kind of what I wanted to touch on more so is getting Harrison the ball. I know Murray came out and said, well, it's whatever the coaches or whatever the plays the coaches call or whatever. But at the end of the day, when you have a wide receiver wide open on the field for a touchdown, you don't look his way. Like, you're the quarterback on the field. You can't be pawning that off on your coach. Like, you should notice your receiver when he's wide open. And Murray completely missed him on a touchdown pass that he would have had to. Like, Harrison was wide open. As a quarterback, you also can, make audibles and, change the plays if you see something. So I think for Murray, he should recognize the defense a little bit better and maybe try to find a matchup there for Harrison because he is the most hyped receiver coming out of the draft, and you need to get him the ball. Someone like Danny Dimes, who's not as good as Murray in my eyes, was getting Neighbors the ball last week, so I don't think there's any excuse to why Harrison wasn't getting the ball. You need to get him involved. He's your top receiver on the team, regardless of what the stats say from last week. The dude is a freak of nature. He is really talented, so you got to get him the ball. At the end of the day, you will not win games until you get him the ball.
With that, we're going to jump into the next game, Bengals versus the Chiefs. Man, what can you say about the Bengals offense? They looked just bad. They looked really bad. They're just a hot mess right now on offense. I just read Ja'Marr Chase and the team they're calling off negotiations. They're not going to be talking about his contract this year, from my understanding. And Chase is out there whining about they lied to him, this, that, and the other. Listen, you know what? It's the start of the year. You're out there. Now's the time to focus on football, not your contract. Obviously, you're not going to get something done this year. If you want more money, go out and prove it. He didn't do anything last week to go out and prove it. And then he's whining about it this week. Stop whining, Ja'Marr. You need to go out there and show them what you're worth. And until you do that, you're not going to get the contract. Listen, you're negotiating with probably one of the hardest teams to negotiate with, and whether what they said was they lied to you or whatever, irregardless, you're in this boat now. So you got to step up and you got to show everybody why you think you're the best receiver in the league. So now you got the opportunity to do that. I also heard he took out a $50 million insurance policy on himself in order to, in case he gets injured this year. Okay, well, great. Now you got insurance. Now you're not going to be dealing with your contract talks this year. Let's see you go out and prove it. And you do that, then you earned what you earned. So, with that being said, I think that Joe Burrow did not look good last week. I think that the loss of Tyler Boyd in this offense is a big factor. I believe Higgins is out again this week, so they need their one rookie receiver to step up here. Losing Joe Mixon was huge. They need Zach Moss and Chase Brown to step up in the backfield. Chris Jones on that KC defense is going to cause havoc today. They're playing at home, against them. I really just think that the Bengals offense is going to struggle today. I don't see them coming out of their funk this week. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope Burrow proves me wrong, but I think the Chiefs are going to come out there and Jones is going to cause havoc, and I don't see Burrow in the offense overcoming that. On the flip side, you got Patty Mahomes, and I think that we found out last week that they definitely were two really solid young receivers that are stepping up. Kelsey really didn't do much last week. He didn't have to. I still don't think Kelsey is going to be a huge part of the offense today. I think that it's going to be Rice and Worthy, more so Rice. I'm still not sold completely on Worthy, but now that Hollywood Brown is most likely going to miss the whole entire year, from what I read, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I think that Pacheco is going to have a good game here. I could see him going for over 100 yards. I just don't think the Bengals defense is going to be able to stop um, all these weapons, and I also think that their offense isn't going to do them any favors by keeping them off the field any length of time. So I think the Bengals are going to struggle in this game. I think this is going to be easily. I could see it being a 24-10 game. I could see the Chiefs winning by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on Jamar a little bit. When you're more focused on the money rather than the playing, you are not going to win games. Like, I want to compare him to Jefferson yet again. Jefferson was in contract negotiations, but he was still showing up and doing his job. Because at the end of the day, he's still on contract, and he has to do his job and perform and play. And Justin Jefferson is still the best receiver in the league. You're sitting here not practicing up until what? A few days before the opener, and then you have a mediocre first game. Like, dude, you need to focus on the win rather than your money at this point. You have done nothing to prove that you deserve more than someone like Justin Jefferson. I don't think you've done enough to prove that you deserve more than Tyreek Hill, who's old. Like, you need to get your head in check and drop the ego and try to win games rather than focus on all this money. Like, it's just sad to see a player like that in the NFL doing it, especially when you're realistically not better than someone. But at the end of the day, you're playing 16 weeks of the year, practicing outside of that. Like, a lot of us would kill to have them. Well, yeah, 17 now, but 18 with an extra practice week. But still, people would kill to have the money that you're making on a year, like year round basically, and you're really just talking for a few million when you're going to be set for life with, what you should have realistically. And it's just sad to see. And I think due to his external issues there with that I don't think he's going to perform until later on in the season, just because he's too focused on it right now, and he really just does not care about winning. He just wants to get paid, which is sad. Like, don't get me wrong, you're going into your prime years, but dude, even if you're making 20 million, people would die to have that a yearly. Like, I wish I could have that yearly. I'm going to be lucky to even make like 60K a year. Like, let's get a little bit of a grip here. But without that side note being in there, I think their offense is going to struggle right now. I don't think they're utilizing their running backs like they should be. I really genuinely think they need to have Chase Brown out on the field with Zach Moss. I don't think they have the depth at receiver. I think they need to utilize Chase Brown a little bit in the slot, let him line up there on the line with the receivers, because I think he's a really good receiving running back. I think you need to utilize him on the one of the slot spots, whether that's just being like a wide receiver 4 on the field with Zach Moss in the backfield, or even just lining him up in general there in the slot. I think they did that and threw him a few slants or did a few screens or some small routes that they could benefit and extend drives a little bit more. It might be a little bit of a hot take because I know teams don't like doing that, like mixing up their positions on the field. But at the end of the day, you don't have the depth with T. Higgins being hurt, so you need to do something. You need to change something on up, and I'm a huge fan of utilizing your talented players in other spots. You could literally make it as simple as, oh, you're running a slant on this play, you know how to run a slant, or you're running an out or a 10-yard in, like something like that, like is enough to, catch the eye of Joe Burrow. Running backs, when they get motioned out to the line, know how to run routes, so why not just utilize it full time? I don't get why teams don't do that, but I would love to see them change something up this week and involve him quite a bit more, because I think they could have both those guys on the field and have a really nice offense. But we'll kind of see what they do there. On the other side, like you said, KC showed that they have 2 really talented receivers. They still have Kelsey, who should still have a good season, and then you have Pacheco. So I think they're pretty set to have a good game. And originally, going into this year, I had the Bengals beating the Chiefs, but after watching last week, I don't think I could even say that this week.
Yeah, so moving on, the next game, we got the Steelers at Mile High against the Broncos. Listen, I think Bo Nix is probably going to be the quarterback of the future for the Broncos. But with that said, I think he's going to struggle this week against that tough Steelers defense. Man, the Steelers defense looked really good last week. I don't know who's gonna slow down T.J. Watt, um, but I think that Nix is going to struggle, and Steelers are going to end up causing him to make a few mistakes, which is going to be a big difference. I think that the Broncos haven't figured out their rushing game. Javonte Williams is struggling. They got McLaughlin there in the backfield as well, but they use him more in the passing situations. In order for Denver to even have a shot in this game, they have to um, figure out something with Javonte Williams and get him going in the run game to alleviate some of that pressure off of their rookie quarterback. I believe that um, that the Broncos don't have a bad set of receivers, which is led by Sutton and stuff. But you can't put all that on your rookie quarterback. They got to figure out something, whether it's get them in a rhythm. Let's do some screens. Let's get going. But we also got to run the ball. They got to figure something out with Williams, and I don't think this is the week they're going to do that. I think the Steelers defense is just way too strong, and they're gonna cause havoc on Bo Nix all game. And on the flip side, the Steelers offense, Justin Fields is going to be out there again this week, I believe, from what I've read. So, Fields didn't light up the world last week, but he also didn't make any mistakes and cost him a game. So that's what you need in your quarterback play. Especially when you're trying to figure out your offense and stuff like that. Now that he's in there and stuff, he needs to come out there and get the ball to Pickens. Needs to get Freiermuth involved in here. I think Freiermuth could have a big game today. They need to get both Harris and Warren involved in the offense. To Wiggs's point that he talked about with Chase Brown and stuff, I think they need to get Warren out there to help out because their depth on their receiver core isn't that great. So they need to get their weapons out there to help um, Fields so that he can be successful. With that said, I think that this game, um, even though it's at Mile High in Denver, I still think the Steelers are going to come out and win it. It wouldn't surprise me if their defense gets a defensive touchdown in here. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a high scoring game because the Broncos do have a tough defense, and I think that's why they need to get Williams or not. I mean, not Williams. That's why they need to get Harris and Warren involved in this game because Pickens is going to have Sutton on him, which is going to be a tough matchup. That's why I think Freiermuth is going to have a big game. So I think this is going to be a 17-10 type game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be low scoring like last week because the Steelers' offense wasn't really like that impressive, but they were playing with the quarterback who wasn't taking those first team reps for the last like week and a half, 2 weeks there. So, um, it definitely will be because I think both these defenses are not that bad. Surtain's gonna be right there on Pickens. I could see Pickens going for another
Yeah,
70 or 80, but um, I think George Pickens is set to have a really good year. I think if the Steelers keep starting Fields, that Fields will grow a really good connection with Pickens like he did with Moore last year, and I think Pickens is going to have a really good year. They're just playing a tough defense here this week, so um, I don't expect it this week, but if they start Fields again next week and the week after, I definitely see Pickens having a really good year. So keep your eyes on Pickens, keep your eyes on Fields. I do agree with you. Getting Warren more involved in this offense would be ideal. I think it's another situation where you can run with both Harris and Warren out there. I really wish teams would listen to me a little bit and utilize their talent. I think Warren is a better option than your wide receiver 3, so put him on the field to receive the ball, please. Like, utilize your guys, even if it's something where you line up both Harris and Warren in the backfield and run a passing play and they run wheel routes. Like, get them the ball. Like, come on. Let's use our brains a little bit. Utilize your talent. Like, I get you want to extend the life of your running backs, but at the end of the day, you should be focusing on winning the game, and I think you need to utilize running backs like Brown, like Warren, out on the field, getting them the ball, allow them to do their thing. I think you touched on the Broncos pretty well there, so I won't even add on to that. I just think Bo Nix needs to be a little more accurate. That's really all I could say. But I know it was his first game, so I'm not going to stress too much about that. They threw the ball over 40 times last week, so
Yeah, he threw it a lot.
um,
That's a lot of pressure to put on your rookie quarterback.
no, I agree with that. But I honestly like that because it put him into the thick of things right away, and it gave him more opportunities in that week 1 matchup. And if you want to lose any week, like not that they wanted to lose, but if you want to lose a game, it's ideally within the first few weeks. But them losing last week and him throwing for 40 plus times maybe allowed for him to sit down and watch a lot more film and figure out what he needs to do this week to succeed because he didn't look terrible, but he didn't look that great because he didn't throw for a lot of yards on 30 completions almost last week. So getting more comfortable, taking some shots downfield, getting the ball to your playmakers. There's a lot of young talent on that receiving core. Plus, you have Cortland Sutton. So um, just be a little more calm, compose yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and just one last thought on this game. I think if the Steelers come out and win, I think the more time that Wilson misses and the more wins that Fields racks up is going to make it difficult for Tomlin to deem Russell Wilson their starting quarterback because you got to go with the guy that's winning the games. And if Fields keeps winning games here, it's going to make it harder for them to come in and say that they're going to plug Russell Wilson in. Uh, so so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. With that said, we're going to jump into the Sunday night game. It's the Bears versus the Texans. Uh, listen, Caleb Williams threw for less than 100 yards, 90 some yards.
93.
Yeah, and they still came out with the win. Interesting. The Bears defense, I think, is a little underrated this year. They actually looked pretty good last week, but they also weren't playing against the Houston Texans. So for me, in this game, the Texans are at home. To me, it was a no brainer to go with the Texans. I still think Williams has got a lot of upside. I just don't know that he's going to be able to show that this week. I think they're going to struggle. Keenan Allen's fighting with an injury. I don't know that he's even going to be playing this week. Odunze's most likely going to be out this week. I think they said he's a game time decision, but I keep hearing that he's probably going to be out. That's going to leave them with not a lot of depth, not a lot of options on offense. DJ Moore is probably going to find it a tough week if he doesn't have at least one of those guys on the opposite side of the field on offense. I think Cole Kmet has to step up and have a big game in order for the Bears to have um, uh, to have a chance at winning. I think that the Bears have to find a way to. Again, I know I said this earlier, but they got to keep the Texans' offense off the field. That means they got to get Swift involved in this. Um, in the run game, and they got to establish drives and take possessions away from the Texans by keeping the time of possession on their side. If they can do that, that'll give them a shot. I don't see it happening. I think on the flip side of things, I think C.J. Stroud, he's got so many weapons. Even with the Bears defense playing really well last week, they're going to have to contend with Collins, Diggs, Tank Dell, Schultz. I mean, and then if that's not bad enough, then you throw in someone like Joe Mixon that's coming out of the backfield. I mean, listen, I think that the Bears are going to have a tough time, especially Caleb Williams. I think Stroud's going to utilize all of his weapons in this game. I think Mixon is going to have a good game as well. So to me, I think unless the Bears can control the time of possession, which I just don't see it happening because the Texans defense is pretty good, I think this could be a potential blowout. Um, by at least 14 points, maybe. I could see 28-14 on this game. So unless the Bears can find a way to keep the Texans offense off the field.
No, I agree with everything you said, and um, I think Williams is going to struggle again. I mean, it's tough because I want him to play good and get DJ Moore the ball a lot, but like I just don't see it right now. He really reminds me of Bryce Young from last year with the way he played in Week 1. I really need to see something out of him here in this week, and I just don't see it because I think this Texans defense is actually pretty good. I think it was just a sluggish week one there and a divisional matchup, which doesn't help. But I think they're going to shut down a lot of the Bears' offense this week here, and I really don't see Caleb Williams having a great week. Now, if he has a great week and DJ Moore has like 200 yards, I'd totally be happy with that, But um, I really hope Keenan Allen does play because I think he does take some pressure off there for DJ Moore to come out and get the ball quite a bit. But if not,
he's got to have Allen or Lindsey out there.
If not, like Williams, yeah, he'll have to target more, but a lot of those targets are not going to be fun targets for Moore, or unless Cole Kmet, takes some pressure off him. But like, it's hard to have your tight end take pressure off. You're trying to take pressure off your tight ends to get open, basically. So
Swift's got to have a big game. They got to use him in if they don't have the other receivers, they got to use Swift in with screens and stuff, and they just got to chip away at what the Texans defense gives them.
If Dunzy and Allen don't play, do you even know who their fourth wide receiver is?
I don't even remember.
God, because I don't think it's anything good here.
I think it's one of the former Vikings, actually, to be honest with you.
Oh, like was it Irv Smith or no? DeAndre Carter would step into a role. Tyler Scott. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be a struggle. We'll have to wait and see. So, but again, we both got the Texans here, and then we go into the Monday night game: Falcons at the Eagles. Falcons huge disappointment last week. Everybody's questioning whether Kirk Cousins is fully healthy or not. Cousins went out on Rich Eisen's show and said, "Hey, listen, I feel really good. My ankle feels good. My Achilles feels good. I'm good." People still question that. I personally don't think it had anything to do with his health. I just think that they faced a monster of a defense last week in the Steelers, and the Steelers actually exposed the weakness of that offense of the Falcons, and that's their offensive line. Actually, I think Cousins went from a bad offensive line interior with the Vikings to an even worse offensive line in general with the Falcons. I expect that Cousins is going to find his mojo. I really do. I just don't think it's going to be this week in Philadelphia against the Eagles. I think that Eagles defense, is still finding their way, because of some of the losses they had last year in free agency. But I think that they're going to come out and play a solid game against Cousins. I think that if the Falcons want to have any shot at all, they got to get Bijan going in this game. He's got to have a big game. They got to get the ball to Drake London and Pitts. I think a deciding factor or someone that could have an impact in this game, and Wiggs is going to love this, is I think Mooney. If you can get Mooney involved in this game, because obviously London's going to be doubled and stuff like that. If they can get the ball to Mooney and Mooney can step up and have a decent game, that will give them a shot. I still don't think they're going to beat them. On the flip side, I think you got Jalen Hurts. I think he's got Devontae Smith. Now the big thing here with the Eagles is that they may not be with AJ Brown, which makes me a little sad. But even without AJ Brown, I think that this could be the game where we find out if the trade with the Washington for Dotson was worth it. Because Dotson needs to be able to step up, and obviously he's not going to be no AJ Brown, right? But he needs to have a game. To me, the biggest factor on for the Eagles in this game is Barkley. I think that if Barkley has a big game, which I suspect he will against this Falcons defense, I think that they're going to rely a lot more heavily on Barkley in this game in both rushing and passing aspects to compensate for A.J. Brown not being out there. Now, Brown's still got a shot. They're saying he's questionable, but everything I'm reading is it's going to come down to a game-time decision. So any of you A.J. Brown owners out there, listen, it's a Monday night game. you need to pay attention, and you better be looking right now. You better go out on the waiver wire. You better try to pick up someone like Dotson. If you're going to let it run down and see, you better look and see if Mooney's available. If you're going to let it, for the Falcons, if neither one of those guys are an option, you better start thinking about it now. You got 49 minutes before the noon games start, so you better have a contingency plan, because there's a very good chance that Brown is not going to play. With that said, I still think the Eagles are going to win this one at home. I think it's going to be a 24-20 type game, something like that. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be 24-20, because I think Cousins is going to still will that offense to some points. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this game plays on out. And I do agree with you. You need to get the ball to your playmakers in Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, obviously, if you can get him the ball. But I personally need to see a big game out of Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney here, because I think London's going to get most of the attention there from the Eagles defense. And if you really have a chance, you have to utilize those two guys as well as Bijan. Obviously, try to get London the ball if you can, but Cousins being a smart quarterback, if he sees a certain read he doesn't like, he's not going to go that way. Now, last week he did not look good at all from a turnover standpoint, and just in general being out on that offense, but I do see him flipping a switch. I think just Tim and Rodgers really just had a slow week coming off their injury. I definitely think the Eagles are going to win this game regardless of if A.J. Brown plays or not. I think Devontae Smith is a really young and nice wide receiver to have out on the field. And then on top of it, I think Dotson will have a decent game. And then they'll probably rely on Barkley a little bit more in the passing game this week, but he showed that he can still receive the ball pretty well on the opportunities he had. So just get your playmakers the ball there on the side of the Eagles, and you'll be perfectly fine. You got a top defense still. So,
all right, Wiggs, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's your player of the week?
Player of the week. Oh God, on the spot. Oh, too many options. St. Brown probably.
Oh, I like that. I like the pick. I'm going to go with Mason. I got a feeling that Mason is going to have a big game against the Vikings. That hurts me to say, but I'm going to say Mason's going to have a big game and be the player of the week for me. So, you have anything else to add, Wiggs?
Nope.
Well, with that, hey, check us out, Fantasy Fools PPR on YouTube. We're out on Snapchat, X, TikTok, Instagram. Subscribe, like, share. If you got any feedback, we're open to it. If you got any questions on your lineups, please reach out. We'll give you our very best opinion. We hope you guys are finding this as a valuable another option to look at for your fantasy selections and stuff. Like I said, we're just shooting out our opinion, and hopefully you guys like the content that you're seeing. And with that, we'll be back on. We'll be doing a recap of all this week's games, of which you'll see tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So look for that coming out tomorrow, and